Stop chasing applause. Stop begging for validation. The world won't clap for your small wins, and that's exactly why they matter most. You've been conditioned to measure your worth by outcomes, not effort. By praise, not progress. But real confidence, the kind that lasts, comes from falling in love with your process, your discipline, your consistency. This is not motivation. This is reprogramming. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to stop seeking approval and start respecting the version of yourself who quietly shows up, even when no one's watching. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop performing and start becoming. You've spent too long performing. Performing confidence. Performing happiness. Performing progress. You've been taught to live for spectators. To measure your worth by how many people are watching. But here's the truth. Most people aren't watching. And the few who are, they don't care as much as you think they do. That's not a problem. That's freedom. The moment you stop performing is the moment you start becoming. Because performance is about attention. Becoming is about transformation. Your growth is not a performance. Say it again. Your growth is not a performance. You don't need applause to evolve. You don't need recognition to improve. You don't need anyone's permission to rise. You have a choice. You can live for their approval, or you can live for your evolution. But you can't do both. Most people spend their lives chasing validation. They want to look disciplined instead of being disciplined. They want to appear confident instead of becoming confident. They want to seem successful instead of building success brick by brick. That's the trap. That's the illusion this chapter will break. Because when you perform for others, you give away control. Your emotions depend on how they react. Your motivation depends on whether they notice. And your peace depends on whether they approve. You're not free when you live like that. You're a prisoner to perception. But when you choose to become, when you choose to grow in silence, you take your power back. You stop chasing eyes. You start chasing excellence. Think about an athlete, the one you admire most. Do you know when they truly grow? Not when the lights are on. Not when the crowd is cheering. They grow in the quiet hours. Early mornings. Empty gyms. No cameras. No noise. Just repetition. Just focus. Just becoming. That's real progress. And that's what most people will never understand. They see the highlight reel. They never see the preparation. They see the success. They never see the silence that built it. But you can't fake consistency. You can't cheat the process. You can't pretend your way into mastery. You have to live it, day after day, moment after moment. And you have to do it with no one clapping, no one noticing, no one congratulating you. Because that's the test. That's what separates performers from transformers. Performers seek the reaction. Transformers seek the result. Performers want validation. Transformers want evolution. You can choose which one you'll be. If you keep performing, you'll burn out. You'll keep chasing attention like oxygen. And when the audience leaves, you'll feel empty again. But if you start becoming, something different happens. You start to enjoy the process itself. You start to find peace in the work. You start to respect yourself, not because others do, but because you kept showing up. You start to admire your own effort. You start to trust your own rhythm. You start to see that becoming is not about display, it's about depth. That's the key. Depth over display. Discipline over drama. Growth over gratification. You have to stop asking, who's watching me? And start asking, who am I becoming? That one question changes everything. When you stop performing, your focus shifts inward. You stop looking for external proof. You start building internal evidence. Every small act of discipline becomes data that rewires your identity. Every promise kept becomes proof that you can trust yourself. Every quiet victory becomes fuel for the next step. That's how you build self-respect. Not through likes, not through praise, but through evidence. And that evidence comes from work no one sees. The early morning, the late night, the moment you wanted to quit, but didn't. That's when you're not performing anymore. You're becoming. It's not glamorous. It's not loud, but it's real. And that's what this book is about, real progress, not performative progress. Because you can't heal while pretending you're fine. You can't grow while pretending you're already great. You can't transform while trying to impress people who don't even know what you're building. So stop performing. Stop proving. Start doing. Your quiet effort matters more than their quick opinion. Your silent consistency matters more than their momentary approval. And your inner growth matters infinitely more than their outer praise. That's the mindset of masters. That's the mindset of those who win long term. They don't need to announce what they're doing. They let results do the talking. They understand this truth: you don't need to be seen to be growing. Sometimes the best season of your life will look like nothing is happening. But inside, everything is happening. You're building focus. You're building resilience. You're building yourself. You are not behind. You are not unseen. You are becoming. Let the world underestimate you. Let them think nothing is happening. You know better. Because real growth doesn't perform. It prepares. It builds in silence, then arrives with authority. That's the key. Preparation over presentation. Substance over show. Becoming over performing. And when you truly embrace that, everything changes. Your anxiety drops. Your self-respect rises. You stop competing for attention and start competing with your own potential. You stop saying, "I hope they notice me," and start saying, "I'm proud I noticed myself." You start respecting effort again. You start falling in love with discipline again. You start falling in love with progress itself. That's what this entire journey is about. Not to impress the world, but to impress your future self. So pause, breathe, and remind yourself, your growth is not a performance. You are not here to entertain. You are here to evolve. You have a choice, and you have it right now. You can keep performing, hoping for their approval, or you can start becoming, earning your own. And once you choose the second path, there's no turning back. Because self-respect feels better than applause. And becoming yourself feels better than pretending to be someone else. That's the foundation. That's the shift. And that's where your new life begins. You've stopped performing. You've started becoming. Now that you've broken free from the illusion of the crowd, it's time to talk about what to admire instead. Chapter 2, The Mirror Test. Admire discipline, not results. Look in the mirror. What do you see? Most people only look for results. They look for visible progress, proof, change that others can notice. But the mirror doesn't lie. It reflects your habits, not your highlights. This chapter is about one thing: admiring discipline more than results. Because results are the echo. Discipline is the source. Results are temporary. Discipline is permanent. You admire who you become, not what you get. Say it again: you admire who you become, not what you get. Modern culture has it backwards. It glorifies outcomes. It worships trophies, transformations, and before and after pictures. But it ignores endurance. It forgets about the invisible hours that built those outcomes. We celebrate the finish line, not the footsteps. We applaud the transformation, not the training. We glorify the result, not the repetition. That's why so many people quit. They chase the reward instead of the routine. They crave the recognition instead of the repetition. But here's the truth: the mirror only respects discipline. It doesn't care about your trophies. It doesn't care about your followers. It doesn't care how loud you shouted about your goals. It reflects what you repeatedly do. You can't lie to your reflection. You can't fake the grind. You can't Photoshop consistency. Every morning, the mirror asks the same question: did you keep your promises yesterday? Not did you win? Not did they praise you? Not did you post about it? Just, did you show up? That's the mirror test. And most people fail it. Not because they're weak, but because they've been conditioned to admire outcomes instead of effort. They look at someone's success and think, "I want that result." But they never ask, "Can I love that routine?" That's the difference. Loving the process creates growth. Chasing results creates burnout. You have a choice. You can chase results that fade, or you can build habits that last. You can be addicted to the applause or devoted to the work. That's the key: devotion over addiction. Let's make it real. Two people start the same journey. One posts every step, craving validation. They need likes to keep going. When the likes slow down, so does their effort. The other trains quietly. No audience. No announcement. Just commitment. They don't need applause to act. They need alignment with their purpose. Who do you think the mirror respects more? Not the one who performs, but the one who perseveres. Because the mirror knows the truth. Results are snapshots. Discipline is identity. That's what most people miss. They think discipline is a punishment. It's not. It's liberation. Discipline frees you from the chaos of inconsistency. It builds self-trust. It builds peace. Results come and go, but discipline stays. You can lose your motivation. You can lose your progress. But you never lose what you've become through repetition. Every disciplined act builds you from the inside out. It creates evidence that you are dependable, strong, capable. And that evidence fuels the next act of discipline. That's the feedback loop of growth. That's how champions are made. The world might only see the medals. But the mirror sees the mornings they didn't quit. You admire who you become, not what you get. Look at any master. The artist, the soldier, the athlete, the thinker. None of them fell in love with results. They fell in love with routine. They fell in love with showing up. They fell in love with discipline. They stopped asking, when will I get there? And started asking, how can I get better? That's the shift that changes everything. Because results have limits. But discipline has no ceiling. You can always refine, always improve, always strengthen. When you admire discipline, you become consistent. When you admire results, you become desperate. Results make you chase. Discipline makes you build. You have to decide which energy you'll live with. Let's be honest, everyone loves results. There's nothing wrong with wanting them. But they can't be your reason. Because when they don't come fast enough, you'll quit. That's why most people never sustain success. They were in love with the outcome, not the process. But when you admire discipline, you win twice. You win from progress, and you win from self-respect. You win even on days you don't see change, because the act of showing up is the change. That's what the mirror sees. Not perfection. Not transformation. Consistency. The mirror doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It reflects the truth, who you are when no one's watching. And that truth is what builds peace. Because once you respect your discipline, you stop depending on results to feel worthy. You stop needing to prove. You start needing to persist. You stop saying, when I hit my goal, I'll be proud. And start saying, I'm proud that I didn't skip today. That's the real transformation. That's how you fall in love with your progress. Because progress isn't just numbers or outcomes. It's who you become through the repetition. It's the quiet proof that you're reliable. It's the internal knowing that you can trust yourself to act no matter how you feel. That's strength. That's maturity. That's mastery. So take the mirror test. Tomorrow morning, look at yourself and ask, am I respecting my own effort? Am I keeping my promises to myself? Am I proud of my discipline? If the answer is yes, even once, you're already winning. You may not see it yet, but you're becoming the kind of person who doesn't need results to stay consistent. You're becoming the kind of person who acts because it's right, not because it's rewarded. That's the mindset that builds unstoppable people. The ones who keep going when everyone else gets tired. The ones who don't chase motivation, they build it. The ones who don't perform, they become. And when you start living that way, the results come naturally. But by the time they arrive, they don't define you anymore. They're just confirmation of what you already knew. You've become disciplined. You've become steady. You've become powerful. You admire who you become, not what you get. Remember that line. Repeat it until it becomes your foundation. Because when you stop worshiping results, you finally start owning your life. That's the mirror test. That's the truth most people avoid. That's the freedom waiting for you when you stop chasing approval and start admiring your own consistency. You have the power to pass that test every single day. Not with words. Not with promises. But with action. Show up again. Do the work again. Keep your promise again. Because the mirror sees everything. And when you finally look at it with pride instead of guilt, you'll know you've earned something better than any result. You've earned self-respect. You admire who you become, not what you get. That's the standard. That's the practice. And that's the real progress. You've learned to admire discipline. Now it's time to understand what happens when you depend on validation instead of resilience. Chapter 3. Detach from applause, the addiction of validation. Let's tell the truth. You're addicted. Not to drugs. Not to caffeine. But to applause. You crave the sound of approval. You crave the feeling of being noticed. You crave the moment someone says, "I see you." That's the addiction no one talks about. The addiction to validation. And it's killing your self-respect. Because the more you depend on applause, the more you forget your own rhythm. You start working for noise instead of meaning. You start living for reaction instead of results. You start chasing dopamine instead of discipline. You are not liked into greatness. You are built into it. Say that again. You are not liked into greatness. You are built into it. The likes don't make you stronger. The comments don't make you consistent. The applause doesn't make you better. The work does. Every time you refresh a feed, hoping for a little hit of attention, you trade your long-term confidence for a short-term chemical. That's how validation traps you. It rewards you for being seen, not for being disciplined. It trains your brain to confuse approval with achievement. And once that wiring sets in, it becomes hard to work without applause. You stop creating unless someone's watching. You stop improving unless someone's praising. You stop growing unless someone's validating. That's the danger of dopamine. It teaches you to chase the feeling, not the fulfillment. Think about it. Social media doesn't just connect you, it conditions you. Every like is a little hit. Every comment is a drop of validation. Every share is another reason to perform. You post your progress not to celebrate it, but to prove it. You work not to grow, but to be seen growing. You start living like an actor on a stage instead of an architect building a life. And soon you forget how to work in silence. You forget how to be patient. You forget how to believe in yourself without evidence. That's the silent cost of applause. It makes you dependent. You stop asking, "Am I proud of my effort?" And you start asking, "Do they still like me?" You stop saying, "I'm becoming disciplined." And you start saying, "I hope they noticed." You lose your self-respect one like at a time. Because every time you depend on their praise, you surrender your power. That's why detachment is the next step of self-mastery. You have to break free from the need to be seen. You have to learn how to work in the dark again. The people who win long-term understand this truth. You can't build greatness on borrowed energy. Applause fades. Attention moves on. But your effort stays. You are not liked into greatness. You are built into it. The most powerful people in the world didn't rise by chasing validation. They rose by mastering themselves in silence. Think about a soldier. There's no applause during training. There's no cheering while they crawl through mud. But every repetition builds grit. Every drill builds confidence. Every day in the dirt builds resilience. That's how mastery is formed, through invisible work. Or think about a musician practicing scales alone. No audience. No praise. Just repetition. The applause comes later, but by then they've already earned it. And that's the irony. When you stop chasing validation, that's when true validation finds you. Because real respect only shows up for those who don't need it. People trust the ones who are too focused to beg for approval. They follow the ones who lead themselves first. That's the energy you want. Not desperate. Not performative. Not thirsty. Grounded. Focused. Self-led. You have a choice. You can be fueled by attention or by intention. Attention fades. Intention lasts. Attention is addictive. Intention is empowering. One steals your peace. The other builds it. So how do you break the addiction? You replace the reward system. You stop rewarding yourself for being noticed. You start rewarding yourself for being consistent. Every time you show up, remind yourself, "This is who I'm becoming." Every time you finish the work, remind yourself, "This is what strength feels like." Every time you resist the urge to perform, remind yourself, "This is power." That's how you rewire your brain for long-term self-respect. You build internal validation by keeping your promises. You build peace by earning your own approval. You build confidence by working when no one is watching. You have to detox from dopamine. You have to starve your addiction to being seen. Not forever, but long enough to remember who you are without an audience. Because when the applause stops, your habits are all you have left. And if your identity depends on noise, silence will destroy you. But if your identity is built on discipline, silence will strengthen you. That's the test. That's where most people fall apart, when no one's watching. But that's where the real ones rise. The ones who understand that validation doesn't make the work real. The work makes the validation real. You are not liked into greatness. You are built into it. Repeat that line every morning. Say it until it sinks in. Until the silence feels safer than the applause. Because when you detach from applause, you start hearing your real voice again. You start trusting your instincts again. You start feeling peace again. The pressure to perform fades. The obsession to prove disappears. What's left is clarity. You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, do I like who I am becoming? You stop chasing the next dopamine rush. And start building the next layer of discipline. That's how you reclaim your focus. That's how you rebuild your confidence. That's how you win. Because the applause was never the goal. The growth was. You are not here to impress the crowd. You are here to impress your future self. You are not here to collect likes. You are here to collect evidence that you are dependable, resilient, unstoppable. That's the real currency of self-worth. Not attention, integrity. Not fame, focus. Not approval, alignment. Detach from applause. Detach from noise. Detach from the need to be seen. You'll find something greater on the other side, peace. And peace is what fuels true power. Because when the world goes silent and you still keep going, that's when you know you've built something real. Something unbreakable. Something that doesn't need to be liked to be great. You are not liked into greatness. You are built into it. And once you understand that, applause becomes optional. Because the respect you really needed was your own. You've detached from the addiction. You've broken the need to perform for approval. Now it's time to understand why silence isn't empty, it's the foundation of power. Chapter 4. The Silent Era, Why Progress Hides from Noise. There's a phase no one talks about. A phase where everything feels still. Where no one notices your effort. Where your progress seems invisible. That's not a punishment. That's the process. You're not stuck. You're sharpening. Because silence is where transformation begins. This is the silent era of your life. The stage where the world thinks nothing is happening, while everything is happening beneath the surface. Silence sharpens. Noise distracts. Say it again, silence sharpens. Noise distracts. Most people can't handle silence. They mistake stillness for failure. They mistake quiet for insignificance. They think if no one sees their work, it doesn't count. But that's wrong. The truth is, progress hides from noise. Growth thrives in focus, not in display. Mastery grows in solitude, not in spectacle. The reason you feel invisible right now isn't because you're losing, it's because you're incubating. Your progress is building roots, not branches. It's strengthening your foundation before showing results. The problem is we live in a loud world. Every day we are surrounded by noise, notifications, opinions, distractions, demands for attention. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to move fast. But growth doesn't happen fast. It happens focused. And focus cannot survive in chaos. Focus is born in silence. That's the science of deep work. When your brain is free from noise, it enters a state of immersion, where 1 hour of focus equals 10 hours of distraction. That's where mastery happens. That's where real progress hides. But most people never reach that level. Because they're addicted to interruption. They check their phone every few minutes. They let noise hijack their attention. They live in a constant state of mental fragmentation. You can't build greatness like that. You can't train your mind to endure, to deepen, to master anything if it's constantly being pulled in 100 directions. You have to protect your silence like it's gold. Because it is. Silence sharpens. Noise distracts. In silence you start to hear yourself again. In silence you start to understand your thoughts, your fears, your patterns. In silence you meet the real you, the one that's been drowned out by constant stimulation. You have a choice. You can drown in noise, or you can rise in silence. That's the key. When you enter your silent era, you will feel lonely. You'll wonder if anyone sees your effort. You'll question if your work matters. But that's the illusion of noise talking. The truth is, Every strong person, every disciplined mind, every focused creator goes through this phase. Athletes train when the stands are empty. Writers write when no one's reading. Builders build when no one's watching. Because silence isn't absence, it's preparation. The quiet seasons are where you learn patience, focus, and emotional control. They are the testing grounds for your next level. You might not have applause right now. You might not have recognition. But if you have consistency, you're already ahead. This is where you separate yourself from everyone else, because most people can't survive unseen. They crumble without validation. They quit when no one's watching. But not you. You are learning to thrive in the unseen. You are learning to build in silence. Every great transformation hides before it reveals. A seed must stay underground before it grows. A sculptor must work in silence before unveiling the statue. A mind must go quiet before it becomes sharp. Silence sharpens. Noise distracts. When you understand that, silence stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like protection. Noise pulls you away from your purpose. Silence pulls you deeper into it. In the noise you perform. In the silence you prepare. That's why invisible seasons are sacred. They protect your focus from public pressure. They let you grow without interference. They allow you to make mistakes without judgment. You are not meant to be seen right now, you're meant to be shaped. And when you're being shaped, you must stay still. Still enough to listen. Still enough to learn. Still enough to strengthen what can't be seen. Because once the noise comes back, and it will, your silence-built strength will keep you grounded. When everyone else is chasing speed, you'll choose depth. When everyone else is chasing attention, you'll choose alignment. When everyone else is chasing noise, you'll choose peace. That's mastery. That's maturity. That's progress that lasts. Think of it this way, the archer doesn't pull the bow back in panic. They pull it back in silence. Calm, focused, intentional. And that silence, the tension before the release, is what gives the arrow its power. That's what your silent era is doing. It's pulling you back so you can launch forward. So if you feel unseen, be grateful. If you feel unheard, be patient. If you feel isolated, be still. Because silence is shaping you. Silence sharpens. Noise distracts. Every time you choose to focus instead of scroll, you're sharpening. Every time you choose to work instead of announce, you're sharpening. Every time you choose to practice instead of post, you're sharpening. And one day the results will speak louder than any noise ever could. You won't need to say a word. You won't need to prove a thing. Your progress will speak in the quiet language of discipline and consistency. That's why the silent era is sacred. It's the birthplace of confidence that can't be shaken. Because it wasn't built on attention. It was built on alignment. You are learning to find peace in solitude. You are learning to find pride in privacy. You are learning to fall in love with your own focus. And that is the highest form of self-respect. You have a choice every day, noise or silence, distraction or depth, performance or preparation. Choose silence. Choose sharpening. Choose focus. Because this era is not your downfall, it's your foundation. This silence is not your weakness, it's your weapon. This invisibility is not rejection, it's incubation. Silence sharpens. Noise distracts. When the world gets loud again, you'll be ready. Ready to lead, not perform. Ready to act, not react. Ready to live with calm conviction instead of chaotic validation. Because silence taught you something the noise never could. That progress doesn't need an audience. It only needs your attention. So honor your silent era. Protect it. Use it. Because when you emerge, you'll move with precision, with purpose, with peace. And the world will finally see what silence was building all along. You've mastered stillness. You've learned that silence is not empty, it's full of power. Now it's time to take that power and give it structure. To learn how to build consistency that protects your focus. Chapter 5. The System Over Goals Principle. You've heard it your whole life. Set goals. Chase goals. Hit goals. But the truth is, goals don't change your life. Systems do. Because goals are destinations. Systems are directions. Goals are about where you want to go. Systems are about who you're becoming on the way. You don't rise to goals, you fall to systems. Say that again, you don't rise to goals, you fall to systems. That's not just motivation. That's math. Because when the excitement fades, and it always does, your systems decide your future. Think about it. Everyone can set a goal. Everyone can say, I want to get fit, or I want to build a business, or I want to write a book. But only a few people actually get there. The difference isn't talent. It's structure. The difference isn't motivation. It's consistency. Goals are easy to imagine. Systems are hard to sustain. But systems are what make success predictable. You don't need another goal. You need a routine that runs even when you don't feel like it. Athletes know this. They don't wake up every day chasing a gold medal. They chase the process, the training schedule, the reps, the diet, the sleep, the routine. Because they understand this truth. Champions are not built on game day. They're built in the days no one sees. Writers know this. They don't wait for inspiration. They have a system. They sit down, same time, same place every day. They don't chase perfection. They chase completion. Entrepreneurs know this too. They don't pray for motivation. They build processes that move even when energy dips. Systems that protect focus. Routines that replace chaos. That's how they scale their consistency and their identity. You don't rise to goals, you fall to systems. Here's why that matters. When you chase goals, you build pressure. You tell yourself, I'll be happy when I hit that mark. But when you build systems, you build momentum. You tell yourself, I'm proud that I showed up today. Goals are distant. Systems are daily. Goals are about outcomes. Systems are about identity. Goals are about finishing. Systems are about becoming. That's the difference between short bursts of effort and lifelong growth. You have a choice. You can be addicted to results or committed to routines. Most people choose the first. They set big goals, get excited, sprint for a week, and then burn out. Because they were chasing outcomes, not building habits. But when you choose systems, something powerful happens. You stop waiting for motivation. You start trusting momentum. You don't have to hype yourself up anymore. You just follow the structure. You show up. You execute. You repeat. That's how discipline is built, through automation, not inspiration. You don't rise to goals, you fall to systems. Here's what that means in real life. If your system is solid, you can have a bad day and still progress. If your system is strong, you can feel unmotivated and still perform. If your system is built around who you want to be, you keep growing, even when no one sees it. Systems protect you from your emotions. Because let's be honest, you won't always feel like it. You won't always feel confident. You won't always feel strong. But if your system is simple and clear, you'll move anyway. That's power. That's self-mastery. That's how you build a life that doesn't depend on moods or motivation. Think of your system as scaffolding for your identity. You may not see the structure when the building is finished, but without it, nothing stands. Systems build self-trust. Every time you follow your process, you prove to yourself that you're dependable. And that proof becomes identity. You stop saying, I'm trying to be disciplined, and start saying, I am disciplined. That's the shift. You're not chasing who you want to be, you're practicing it. That's why goals fail. They demand transformation without foundation. Systems succeed because they turn transformation into routine. When you fall to systems, you rise in identity. Because repetition reshapes belief. Every time you act, you're voting for the person you want to be. That's how you build lasting change, habit by habit, choice by choice, day by day. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It's quiet work. But that's what makes it real. You don't need to dream bigger. You need to execute smaller. Simplify the process. Shrink the steps. Repeat the rhythm. Small systems create massive results because they're sustainable. Anyone can start fast. Few can stay consistent. But systems make consistency automatic. When your system is clear, you don't waste energy deciding. You just do. And doing is what compounds. Every repetition stacks. Every small action adds up. Every day of discipline multiplies. That's how momentum becomes identity. That's how quiet consistency turns into loud success. You don't rise to goals, you fall to systems. So here's your challenge. Stop asking, what's my next goal? Start asking what system will make the next goal inevitable. Because the truth is, goals don't fail people. People fail to build systems that protect them when motivation dies. Motivation fades. Systems stay. And once you have a system, you can face anything. Failure becomes feedback. Success becomes routine. Discipline becomes your default. That's how self-mastery is built, through structure, not hype. So what does your system look like? It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to exist. A morning routine. A daily practice. A time to work, a time to rest, a time to reflect. A process that you follow no matter how you feel. Because structure doesn't limit you, it frees you. It removes guesswork. It removes emotional friction. Keeps you aligned when life gets loud. You don't rise to goals, you fall to systems. The athlete doesn't rise to the championship, they fall to the training schedule. The writer doesn't rise to the bestseller, they fall to the daily word count. The entrepreneur doesn't rise to the empire, they fall to their consistent process. That's how success is built, not in bursts but in blueprints. And once your system is in motion, your identity starts to follow it. You stop saying, I want to change, and start saying, I am changing. You stop chasing milestones and start creating momentum. You stop performing progress and start living it. That's how you fall in love with your own progress, through systems that keep you grounded, consistent, and calm. Because in the end, goals are loud. Systems are silent. Goals impress others. Systems strengthen you. Goals motivate. Systems transform. You don't rise to goals, you fall to systems. And when you do, you'll find that success is no longer something you chase, it's something you practice. Every single day. This is how you win quietly. This is how you evolve without applause. This is how you fall in love with progress itself. Because when you live by systems, you never start over, you just keep building. So take a deep breath. Look at your life. And commit, not to the next goal, but to the next repetition. Not to the finish line, but to the daily process that builds the person capable of crossing it. Because in the end, systems don't just get you results. They make you someone who doesn't need to chase them anymore. You don't rise to goals, you fall to systems. And once you've built a life that runs on discipline instead of desire, you've mastered the real secret of progress. You've stopped performing. You've started becoming. You've stopped chasing outcomes. You've started building identity. And that's how you fall in love with your own progress.